me share the screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before coming up with the module 2, before starting module 2, let us have a quick recap of what we discussed in our previous class. So we discussed about the aspect of version space, the remarks on version space, and also the inductive bias. So the remarks on version space and the candidate elimination algorithm were that will the candidate elimination algorithm converge to the correct hypothesis? Then we discussed whether there should be no errors in the training example and should be some hypothesis which should be correctly describing the concept, target concept. Then second remark was what training example should be learned request the learner should request next, depending on whether it can be an external example or a, internal or its own, right? The size of the virgin space. And the third remark was how can partially learned concept be used, right? So this was the another a new instance, new set of instances we discussed, and we set up the using the same set of hypotheses that we converged by using candidate elimination algorithm. We discussed whether these can be how a hypothesis can be partially learned concept. When we discussed about the inductive bias, one of the important concept, how what is inductive bias and how inductive bias plays a role in uh, coming up to the value of the target concept function. Right. We took an example of this. We discussed the hypothesis, taking an simple instance then and how an unbiased learner uh, can be played can play its role, right? How an unbiased learner can be made use of, right? By making a power set of the instances. We discussed few examples with respect to that, and then the futility of the biased free learning algorithm. We discussed the concept of inductive inference, right? The inductive inference. What is inductive inferences? The conjunction of the target concept, the set of training example DC, and the instances Xi, which infers to the learner. The learner here is the learning algorithm, right? uh, with the same set of instances xi and the target concept dc, right? So this was the you can say a definition of inductive inference. Now our next topic, that is the module 2, that is the decision tree learning algorithms. So these inductive inferences, how these inductive inferences make are important in the inductive bias, is what we are going to learn in the coming module. The module that is decision tree learning is another example or a learning algorithm which makes use of these inductive inferences, right? So apart from that, we discussed about how this including an inductive bias into our learner or inductive system can play a role, and how by making use of the assertions and how it makes an impact, right? How it gives us more accurate results compared to the uh, simple candidate elimination algorithm. We also discussed about the advantages of having these inductive inferences, and ultimately we did a comparison of the algorithms we learned, right? How inductive bias can play a role in the Fine-Dash algorithm, in the candidate elimination algorithm, and a simple rote learner algorithm, right? So to give a brief overview, the rote learner algorithm doesn't have any inductive bias, whereas the candidate elimination algorithm, there is some part which plays the role of the inductive bias, and in the Fine-Dash algorithm, uh, a high level of or a high degree of inductive bias you can see in the Fine-Dash algorithm. So discussing about those inductive inferences and inductive bias, the decision tree learning algorithm is one of the most used algorithm when we talk about the inductive inferences. Right, so it is widely used and it's practical. It's practical. Right, the practical methods uh, is on the grounds of the inductive inferences. Now, Just to give a brief introduction about the decision tree. The decision tree learning is a method of approximating the discrete value functions. So by now you must be clear with what is this, what is target functions, what is a discrete value. Right? A discrete value is a simple Boolean classification as we discussed, right? A yes or no, something like that. So the decision learning algorithm, what it does it is a kind of a method, right, which approximates the this method is used for approximating these discrete values. We will see with an example, but let us first understand what are the different aspects of decision learning. So decision learning, decision tree learning algorithm. Now this learned function, right, the learned function or the learned model or a learned algorithm, you can say. The learned function is represented by a decision tree. I hope you all know what is how a decision tree would look like a simple decision tree. It can be a binary or a non-binary tree, but in broad terms, just a decision tree. So this learned function is represented in the form of a decision tree. Now it can also be re-represented as a set of if-then rules, a simple if-then rules, right? If so and so, then do this, or do this, right? So a simple representation of a decision tree can also be done in the form of a if-then rules, just to improve the readability, the human readability, just to make it more readable. Now, as I mentioned, that it is the most popular, the decision tree learning is the most popular inductive reference algorithm. It is the algorithm which makes use of these inductive references. So, I hope you can understand now where this decision tree learning algorithm can fit in. Right. So, let me show you the diagram, the diagram which we discussed in our previous class, that let's say we have an algorithm, the candidate elimination algorithm, which was a simple inductive system which makes use of your training examples as an input and the new instance which is given as the input. And by making use of the hypothesis space, it gives us the classification, right? Whether the new instance is it's a positive instance, a yes, or a negative instance, a no, or a don't know classification, whether it is not able to classify it. But when we include an inductive bias, right, an inductive bias which makes use of the inductive inference by making use of few set of assertions, right, we have better accuracy. So this was the equivalent deductive system, equivalent to this, which made use of the inductive bias explicitly. So let us call it that as a, we called it as a theorem prover. So again, it took few set of training examples, a new instance to be classified, but it made use of the inductive bias, or in turn, it made use of the inductive inferences by the set of assertions, which again give us the output, which positive classification or a negative classification or a don't know classification. So the advantage of having this inductive bias or inductive inference here was it was able to give us more accurate classification than a regular candidate elimination algorithm. Right? So I hope you now get the point where this decision tree learning algorithm can fit into. So let me go back to the current slide. So as I said, it is the most popular inductive inference algorithm, one of the most popular inductive inference. Now let us go more depth into it. And okay, before that, let us understand what is the area of application. A simple applications which have been proven, which have been tested and proven. Uh, the decision tree learning algorithm has been applied onto few models. So these are the few successful uh, applications of the which has the broad ranges of tasks. Let's say from learning to diagnosing a medical case, right? So those who are planning to have a final year project with respect to diagnosing a particular kind of disease, right? Let's say some kind of a particular kind of a cancer, right? So how to train, which algorithm to be used, how to train that particular model. I think those things will be clear as and when we proceed subsequently in the lectures here in the subject, right? So one of the application of having this decision tree learning algorithm is it is able to learn as well as diagnose the medical cases. And another area of application is learning and assessing a risk of loan, right? A credit risk of loan applicant. So we'll have an understanding. These are just the applications which are few listed by the author here, but there are more such area of application when we talk about the decision learning tree. It's a popular learning algorithm. Now, how is it represented? Right. We talked about what is decision tree and what are the different areas, but how can we represent a particular decision tree? So the decision tree classifies instances. I hope by now you must be clear what is a particular instance, right? So what the decision tree does is it classifies the instances by sorting them down, right? Sorting them down the tree, starting from the root to some leaf node. The basic, a simple tree, how it looks like, right? We have a root, and then followed by it, we have few set of nodes, and some of those nodes are the leaf nodes. So these are the this is how a simple decision tree can be represented. Now, what it provides us, the decision tree, by this representing by this, how are we getting benefited, or what are we achieving from it? What does the decision tree provides us? It provides the classification of the instances. Right now, this classification can be any classification. It can be a simple Boolean classification, or it can be any particular value. Right? We will see as and when we proceed. But for now, just have a simple understanding that what it does, it gives us, or it provides us, the classification of the instances that we provide. Now, each node specifies a test of some attributes, right? Each node here will specify a set of attributes. Now, what is this each node? This is the uh, each node in the tree, which specifies a test of some attributes of the instance. Now, each branches descending from these nodes, right? Each branch descending from this each node corresponding to the possible values. Possible values of what? Possible values for that particular attribute. Now, it is not just gives the value which is suitable, but it gives you all the possible values. Now, it is up to us, depending on what kind of instances, what is the correct value among the all possible values. So, just to give you a brief understanding of it, let's say this is a decision tree for the concept of playing tennis. Let's say the target concept is to learn is to identify whether we are able to play tennis under a few constraints, under a few conditions, right? So for time being, forget about what are these entities here, what are these nodes defining, or what are these attributes here, how is this classification done, right? So for time being, just understand that this is just a decision tree, how it may look like. So we will have an in-depth understanding of how this decision tree has been formed. So let's say an instance is classified by starting at the root of the node of the tree and moving down the tree branch is corresponding to the value of the attribute, as I said in the previously. So this whole process of forming a root node and then moving down to the subsequent branches and then reaching out to the value of a particular attribute, this is carried out in a repeated fashion. This process is repeated uh, for the subtree. Let's say in the previous example here, let's say we have this tree, right? This itself is one tree here, and this itself is another tree here, right? So and this itself is another tree here. So there is it's a subset of subtrees, right? So this process is repeated for the subtrees rooted at the new node. New node can be at first it will be the root node itself, and as and when we proceed, it will be the branches and the sub trees inside that main tree. So this figure here, it is the example that classifies by sorting these uh, aspects, it sorting it through the tree, to the appropriate leaf node. Leaf node would be this, right? These will be our leaf nodes. And then what it returns, it simply returns the classification associated with this leaf, right? In case if it is a yes or let's say no or whatever. So it returns as the classification of that particular uh, attribute associated with that particular leaf. So this trees classifies basically this example what we have taken here. It classifies the let's say Saturday morning we will be able to play this tennis game or no. It is just an example, right? So this particular tree gives us the classification whether Saturday morning according to whether according to whether or not they are suitable to play this game, tennis or no. So play tennis is our target concept here. So now this decision tree, as I said, classifies the Saturday morning according to whether they are suitable to play tennis or no. So let's say in this decision tree, it what it does it the instance, let's say for example this instance, we have a instance here, outlook which is sunny, temperature which is hot, humidity which is high, and a wind strong. So this instance for instance we can say that it would be sorted down to the leftmost branch. If we go and check the uh, decision tree here, it will be sorted down to the leftmost branch. So let us first remember what is the instance here, right? So the outlook is sunny, temperature is hot, humidity is high, and wind is strong. So sunny, hot, high, and strong, right? So when we go back to the diagram here, and let me erase these things that we are more clear. Okay, so this is our decision tree, and as you can remember, outlook was sunny, right? Let's say outlook was sunny. So if it is sunny, next our tree is here. Temperature is hot. We don't have the attribute here. Time being, we don't have the attribute temperature, so we are not checking for the value of the temperature. So it's a don't care condition, you can say. And humidity, the value for the attribute humidity is high, right? So we checked here that the value of the attribute is high. And wind we are not checking because we are on this side of the tree. We are traversing to the left side of the tree, which is ending up having returning the value as no. The classification is no. So that's why we can say that this tree, this instance that outlook is sunny and temperature is hot and humidity is high and wind is strong. It classifies as that the it would be sorted down to the leftmost uh, branch of this particular decision tree, and it can be classified as a negative. Since the classification is no, we cannot play tennis for these conditions. The classification stands no for a negative instance, right? That means the play tennis value, the target concept play tennis, will be a no value. Now here, so this particular instance will be leading to a target concept, let's say no. Now, one important factor to be considered here is the decision tree represent. How it represents is it represents a disjunction of conjunction of constraints. Right? We already learned about what are the constraints and what are the conjunction of the constraints. Right? In our previous lectures, uh, when we formed the set of all the possible values, we formed the conjunction of the constraints. Right? So what the decision tree does is it represents a disjunction of all these conjunction of constraints. Right? Now these conjunction of constraints are on the value attribute values of that particular instance. Just to give an example, this outlook, you can say outlook is sunny, and humidity is normal. So what are these? These are just the constraints. We are putting the constraint that outlook should be sunny, humidity should be normal. These are the constraints here. Right? Now, here is the conjunction of these constraints, right? This is the conjunction of the constraints outlook sunny and humidity normal. So this whole thing is one conjunction. Likewise, we have another constraint that outlook is overcast, right? So, but since we have only one constraint, there is no conjunction here. And ultimately, then we have two more constraints that outlook is rain and wind is weak. So this whole thing is another conjunction. Now these three conjunctions are disjuncted, right? As you can see, there is a disjunction symbol here. These three conditions are disjuncted. So this is what our whole decision tree would be representing. It's the same representation of a decision tree that has been put up in the form of an expression. So this whole thing can be put it in the single line that, let's say we have conjunction 1 C1, which is disjuncted with conjunction 2 and then again disjuncted with the conjunction 3, right? So our C1 is this, C2 is this, and C3 is this, right? So you can see that the decision tree is represented, decision tree represents a disjunction of conjunction of the constraints on the attribute value of instances, the instances that we provide. Now, what are the the appropriate problems? The question that arises is, what are the problems that can be called as a decision learning problems, right? So as we discussed the well-posed problems in machine learning, if you remember our introductory classes, the initial classes, we discussed whether uh, what type of problem, what kind of problem can be called as a well-suitable problems for the machine learning. Because simple reason, because not all problems can be called as a machine learning problems, right? Or not all problems, or the real time problems, can be fit into this model of a machine learning. Not every problem can be classified or made automated or made learn by the system. So we need to classify which all problems can be called as a machine learning problem. So inside those problems, the problems that we classify as a whole, which can be represented in the which can be learned using machine learning, there are few more appropriate problems which can be learned by these algorithms like decision learning algorithms. So inside that whole subset, okay, imagine that there is a whole subset, whole power set, which gives us the possible problems which can be represented in the machine learning. So inside that whole power set, we have a subset which can be appropriate problem only for the decision learning. Right. So in that whole power set, we have few sets of problems, we can say, which are going to be perfectly fitting into this decision learning algorithm. So, but what are these problems? How can we say that these problems are appropriately fitting into this decision learning algorithm? So there are a few set of characteristics, right? We have to look for in order to say that this particular problem can be a decision learning problem, or this particular problem is suitable, is appropriate for the decision learning problems. Now, what are these characteristics? The first characteristics is the instances are represented by attribute value pair. Right. What are these attribute value pair? The attribute value, as I said, it is the instances are described by few fixed set of attributes. For example, let's say temperature. Let me go back and show you the okay here in the instance. Let's say we have this particular instance. So the temperature, let's say it has a value as hot. So the attribute temperature has the value hot here. So likewise, what are the attribute? Let's say outlook, it has the value sunny, and so on. So the instances are represented by the attribute and their value pairs. Right. So for all the attributes, there should be a value. If we are defining an attribute, we should define a value for that. So it's a pair. We should represent that particular instance in the form of a pair, attribute value pairs. So if we have these characteristics, we can put that kind of problem into the decision tree learning. The second classification that we have, that is the target function has discrete output values, right? The target function, the ultimate target function, which is, let's say in our case, in today's lecture, what we saw, playing tennis. The target function is playing tennis. It should have a discrete output value. Now, what can be the discrete output value? Whether it is yes or no, right? Whether it's a positive or negative, or a zero or one, right? So the target functions that we have used in our previous lecture, in our previous model, that was enjoy sport problem, right? So the target function enjoy sport problem should have a discrete output value, enjoy sport yes or enjoy sport no. So if we have those characteristics, we can say that that particular problem fits into the decision learning algorithm. Now, here is the main thing to be noted here, that not just the binary value or these discrete output, that is the Boolean classification, that is yes or no. The decision tree methods, these decision tree methods, they can also be extended. Extended for what? They can be extended for learning functions with more than two possible values. Right? So output shouldn't be necessarily just yes or no. It should definitely have a yes or no, that is a positive or a negative or a zero or one output, discrete output. But definitely the decision tree learning algorithm can be extended for few more set of discrete outputs. Right. So let's say if we have three outputs, three discrete outputs, it decision tree learning algorithm can be extended for it, but it is not so common, you can say. Or if we are looking forward to extend this learning function decision tree for more than two possible output values, more substantial extension, right? The more substantial extensions allows these learning target functions with real valued output. By real valued, I say, for example, temperature. We are giving temperature as hot, but this can be classified for more real valued outputs. Let's say some value, some numerical value for that particular temperature, 32 degrees Celsius or 42 degrees Celsius, something like that. So this can be extended. But though the thing is here is that the application of these decision trees is in this setting, that is real-time values, numerical values, these settings, it is very, you can say, rare, or it's not so common. It is very less common. So all in all, when we say when a particular target function have two, the best case is when we have two output values, that is yes or no, then we can definitely say that this particular problem can fall into a decision learning algorithm. But as I said, there are exceptions. We can extend this decision learning algorithm for more than two values as well. Anyways, the third characteristics for considering a particular problem as a decision learning algorithm is it should have a disjunctive description. Now, what are these disjunctive description? The disjunctive description, as we discussed earlier in our previous slide, that the decision tree should naturally represent the disjunctive expressions, right? So these were the disjunctive we saw, right? The conjunction of all the constraints which can form a disjunction. So when we can say that the decision tree can be represented in the form of a disjunction, then that particular problem can be considered for the decision tree problems. So disjunctive description should be given for that particular problem. The fourth attribute is the training data may contain error. So let's say we have few problems which can have few errors, which can contain few errors, then those problems can be considered for the decision tree learning algorithm, right? So as we discussed in the previous lectures regarding find S algorithm or candidate elimination algorithm, those were the algorithms which were not so good uh, when we talk about noisy data or data which has error, right? The training examples. If the training examples have errors, then candidate elimination algorithm and find days algorithm would not converge to right set of hypotheses, right? So unlike candidate elimination algorithm and uh, find days algorithm, the decision tree learning algorithms can have the data set which may contain error. So if we have some kind of data set which have uh, which pro- which can have few errors, uh, then those can be treated under this decision learning framework or decision learning methods. The reason is simple because the decision tree learning is more robust, right? It is more robust to the errors, most robust to the can be described, right? So let's say errors not just with respect to the attribute values, right? Errors not just with respect to these attributes, but errors with respect to these attribute values also. So they can be handled well in the decision tree. So if we encounter such kind of data set, we can say that the decision tree methods are still, these problems can be processed or can be used for the for such kind of methods, that is decision tree methods. Now the last the characteristic to have a problem uh, to be called as a decision tree method is that the training data may contain the missing attribute values, right? The training data may contain the missing attribute value. So as I said, whether the attribute itself or the value of that attribute can contain error, but in case if we don't have the value for a particular attribute also, then also we can consider that problem for our decision tree method, right? So we let's say we have a training examples or the training data which in which we don't have the value for few attributes. The values for those attributes are missing, but still we can use these training examples under this decision tree methods, which is unlike the candidate elimination algorithm and finders algorithm. In those case, that is the finders algorithm and candidate elimination algorithm, we we should mandatorily have the value of the attributes there. But here in our case, it is okay if we have a training data set which in which a few of the values are missing. That is completely okay, right? But of course, it will lead to few, it will compromise with our accuracy. But definitely, the data set can be handled, and we may get uh, required output. We can have some output instead of having no output when we take this approach of decision tree method, right? So this that is the last attribute, the last characteristic, that the training data may contain missing attribute values, right? So it can be used even when some training examples have unknown values. The values for a particular attribute is unknown. For example, let's say humidity of the day is known for only some of the training examples. We don't have the value for the attribute humidity for all the training examples. We have only for some of the training examples. We can still have that particular problem, which can be appropriately called as a problem for a decision learning method or a decision tree learning method. Right. So I hope by now you are crystal clear with what kind of problems are best suited for fine-dash algorithm, what kind of problems are best suited for a decision learning algorithm, right? And how uh, using the same data set, if let's say if the data set doesn't have few values are missing, or the data set is not converging to the discrete, uh, just two Boolean expressions, that is yes or no, positive or negative, then still we can make use of this problem. We can still process these problems in the category of the decision tree method. So I hope the things are clear. Anything, any doubt that you want to ask, anything which is not clear? Yeah, anybody, any doubt? You can unmute your mic and you can ask for doubt if you have. In case if you have, if you don't have, you can at least let me know if you have doubts. Yeah, please. Anybody having any kind of doubt in any of the slides where we have discussed so far? Yes, please respond. Anybody having any doubt? Want to or some anything which is not clear? Want me to repeat? Please be interactive. At least say yes or no because I will not come to know whether you are understanding or no. Right? We cannot proceed ahead without your acknowledgement. No, sir. What? Didn't clear? Didn't understood? No, or no doubt. Anything that you want me to repeat? Okay, I'll just give you a brief again overview of what we discussed in today's class. Right. So decision tree. We started off with a new model that is decision tree. What is decision tree learning algorithms? How a decision tree? Where does this decision tree learning fits? Right. We discussed uh, in our previous model in our previous model, that is the first model, we discussed about the concept of inductive bias, and in that we discussed the inductive inferences, right? So the decision tree learning algorithm or a decision tree learning method is the most you can say most widely used and practical methods, right? It's one of the most widely used as well as the most practical methods for this inductive references, right? The inductive references that we use, that we learned in the concept inductive bias, right? So what this method does it approximates, or this method is used for approximating the discrete value, right? The discrete value target function. Discrete value are yes or no, right? Or zero or one, positive or negative values. So in this, the learn function is represented in the form of a decision tree, right? So the decision tree, in simple terms, for more readability for humans, if they want to read this decision tree, it can be represented in the form of a if-then rules also, right? So that's what I said, that it is the most popular inductive reference algorithm. Now, the application, simple applications of the decision tree are they can be used to learn as well as diagnose a particular kind of a medical case, right? So, I gave you example in case if you want, if you are planning to have uh, final year project in this domain, that to identify some kind of disease or infection or anything, right? So these algorithms is what you are going to make use of. Another application, successful application, tried and trusted uh, application, is learning and assessing credit risk of loan. Right. So this binary tree method can also be used in the financial domain, wherein we can have few values in the form of numbers, and we can classify the instances to converge to few values, the attribute value, the target concept. When we saw how do we represent a decision tree, right? We classify each instance by sorting them down from root to leaf node. So what is this? What does it provide? It provides the classification of the instances, right? So each node specifies some attributes, and each branch descending from that particular node is corresponding to few set of possible values, right? Few possible values for that particular attribute. Then we saw a simple diagram of how a decision tree would look like. This was basically a diagram for the target concept play tennis, right? Whether we want to enjoy tennis on a weekend, Saturday or no. So this was just a diagram. So we will learn about this diagram more in the subsequent lectures. How do we come up with this decision tree representation? But for now, this is just to show you how a simple decision tree would look like for a particular target concept. Just for example, let's say for a playing tennis. Then we defined the same, like how this particular decision tree is formed, right from a root node traversing down to the tree branches corresponding to the values for those particular attributes, right? So this particular process is repeated for the subtrees rooted for the new node, right? We discussed about the left tree, right tree. And this was a simple example, a simple instance that we took, that is with the constraint that outlook, attribute outlook having value sunny, out, attribute temperature having value hot, and attribute humidity having value high, then wind attribute having value strong. So this was a simple instance, which was when we saw, when we traverse here in the tree, we end up having the classification for this target concept as no, or a negative classification. Right? So under those constraints, that when outlook is sunny and temperature is hot, humidity is high and winds are strong, then the classification is no, that we shouldn't enjoy the tennis. Then we saw the definition of the decision tree representation, that what it actually does. Right? The decision tree represents the disjunction of conjunction of the constraints. Right? The disjunction of the conjunction of the constraints on the attribute value of instances. So just to give a format, simple representation, it looks like this, right? So that's all we looked to in today's lecture, that few of the problems how they can fall into the category of decision tree methods having these characteristics. So I hope the things are clear. If you still have any doubt, you can reach me out anywhere in the WhatsApp group or our Google Classroom, right? And we will discuss those queries in the next lecture. Thank you, and you can leave the meeting.